Variation is everywhere. No two parts or process outputs are absolutely similar. By variation, I mean the way parts and ways of working may differ in any way possible. Let me give you an example. I drive to office every day and I capture the time by a stopwatch. Here are the readings for the last 30 days in minutes and seconds. You can see how these different observations are changing up and down, and this up and down or this changes that we have in the process can be termed as inherent variation in the given process. Control charts are line charts which are powered by the control limits. Control charts has upper control limit, middle line which is the mean or the average, and the lower control limit. These control limits helps Six Sigma professionals and statisticians to differentiate the variation that is caused by a special cause versus a common cause. Let's go to Minitab and see how the control chart gives me the output for these observations that I've captured. I've pasted these values on Minitab. Now I go to Stat, I go to Control Charts, I go to Variable Charts for individuals, and then I click on IMR. Let me read the text what it explains for the IMR chart. Monitor the mean and the variation moving range of your process when you have continuous data that are individual observations that are in subgroup. Things to remember is that this is continuous data, these are individual observations and not subgroups. I double click on minutes because minutes is what we want to plot for now. I can choose to have a scale of my days. And here is the control chart. Now if you would see, the control chart explains that for my day 6, it was 70.18 minutes, and that is beyond the control limits. So there is something special assigned with this value. There is a special cause behind this variation that has occurred in the process. The rest all up and down are due to normal course of variation. Similarly, in the range chart as well, the range between the values from previous to this one, it is beyond the control limits, and hence it is called as a red symbol and is out of the control limits. What control chart gives us is the upper control limit, the X bar which is the mean and the lower control limit, and the moving range chart gives us the upper control limit, the moving range average and the lower control limit. Now let's understand what are the calculations behind these values using an Excel file. I've got these Excel values ready here, and now I'm calculating the range for the days when we had minutes. Now like I said, range is a calculation from the previous value to the current value because these are individual range or individual values. So I'm going to continue to calculate the range from previous to this one. As you can see, I'm just moving one by one and I've calculated this range. It's a simple formula of the lower value versus the upper value. That's how we've calculated the range for all of these observations. These are moving ranges, and that's why, because it's like moving with every value, hence it is called moving ranges. The next step, which is very important step for us to take, is to make it absolute value. Absolute, what it does is it returns the absolute value of a number without its sign. Now we had observations that were negative values. If you can see, some of these are negative values here. In order for us to calculate the average of these ranges, we had to convert these into the positive value, and hence I have used the formula of absolute, or you can also call it ABS as the converter from negative sign values to positive sign values. Once you've calculated the moving ranges in the positive form, that's when we will come to calculate the components of our control chart that we had in the IMR chart. Let's look at the I chart first. The first value that we had in the Minitab was the X bar, or the central line, which is 61.83. It is nothing but a plain average of the minutes. The middle line here was the R bar, which was 2.63 or rather 2.64. R bar is calculated as plain average of the absolute range that we have calculated. After we've calculated X bar and R bar, we can start to create the upper control limit and the lower control limit. Upper control limit is nothing but an addition of mean plus R bar times the constant of E2. Now this constant of E2 comes in from this table that we have, which has control chart constants and formulas. Then we will have control limits for individual chart and subgroup size is 2 or less than 2. We will need to use E2, and as per the formula here you will see the control limits has to be calculated in such a manner is that it needs to be X bar plus E2 times R bar, which is average of range needs to be multiplied with the constant, and that is how you calculate the upper control limit. Similarly, we calculate the lower control limit. It is the X bar minus the range multiplied by the constant, which is our E2. Now, if you will match these values with the Minitab output, it will pretty much match because 68.85 is our upper control limit here, which is matching. 54.81 is the lower control limit, that's also matching. X bar, of course, is 61.83. And so far, we have calculated 2.639, which is our R bar. Now, in order to calculate the moving range chart, we have to first take the average of range, which is 2.64. For upper control limit, the only difference here is that because it's a moving range chart, the formula will differ a little. The formula says that for us to have moving range calculated, we'll have to multiply the R bar with D4. D4 here is 3.267. And for lower control limit, it says D3 needs to be multiplied with R bar. Here it is dash or 0, so we'll keep it as 0. So this is what it is, 8.62, and that value is also matching. This is how the overall calculation flows in for the individual moving range chart. Some of the things that I mentioned earlier were for us to remember is a moving range chart will usually be used when the data is continuous data and we only have one sample or one subgroup that we want to compare the data from. Considering that this was only one observation or one subgroup that I had, my individual observations of going to office, I have used IMR chart. Then we will have subgroup size of greater than 2 or more. We will use X bar R chart, which is the range chart, or we can use X bar S chart, which is the X bar standard deviation chart. If you would like me to email these formula charts or this calculated Excel file to save your time in creating the IMR chart, do let me know in the comment section or just paste your email address in the comment section below, and I will be able to email these working files with you directly, and you can create your own control charts using these working files. I hope this explanation on IMR chart and all the calculation behind it has been helpful to you. I thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you once again.